We have got a Cheetah in the studio today. And not just any Cheetah, but the Haoqi Cheetah full suspension electric fat bike. A 28-mile-an-hour top speed, 750-watt rear hub motor, a 48-volt battery with two options. You either get 16 or 25 amp hours. They actually include a smaller battery to add on to that 16 amp hour battery. You get hydraulic brakes and an aluminum frame with a 400-pound weight capacity on this thing. So if you're a bigger person, this might be a good bike for you. So let's free this Cheetah and get it put together so that we can take it out for a ride and see how it is. Opening up the Cheetah box, this is how everything comes packaged. Looks really nice. First thing here, it looks like we have a charger in this box, so let's get this out of here. This is a Haoqi branded 54.6 volt 2 amp charger. And they say that this is an aluminum frame, so let's see if I can lift this out of the box. Is another box in here that we got to get out. They even give us a nice air pump that we're not going to use because pumping these things up by hand is not fun. They also did ship me some rearview mirrors separately here that we're going to be putting on the bike later. Looks like we've got a pretty standard bike seat on here. Feels decently cushy and padded. It feels like it's kind of a gel. See how that is when we take it out on a ride. And you can see down here we have our Fast Ace rear shock on this bike. It is nice that this is rear suspension and it should be a pretty good shock. And it looks like they did send the one with the two batteries. So there's actually a battery in the frame and then there's a battery right here as well. Combined, that should give you about 25 amp hours of battery. Keep in mind that it does come with only one charger. And we'll get this front wheel on the bike. There really is no glamorous way to do this. Definitely not the most difficult front wheel that I've ever had to put on. As you can see here, we've got some keys for our batteries. We've got a few wires to connect right here. And we've got our Gamma branded hydraulic brake levers. Like we said, we do have two batteries here. So this first main one is a 16 amp hour battery. And it's obviously 48 volts, 768 watt hours of energy. Does not say what brand of cells are in here. We've got our second little battery here, and this is another 48 volt battery. It's a 48 volt, 8.7 amp hour battery. This battery is really light. Kind of a bummer that there's only one charger and two batteries, but it is what it is. Honestly, I would just use this as a reserve backup battery. One interesting thing about this battery is it actually has a fuse up here. I don't know if you can see that. That's interesting. I don't think I've ever seen that on a battery before. Both these batteries are going to be locked in the frame with the key. We'll go ahead and get our pedals installed on here. So I went ahead and threw on the front fender and the headlight. And with that, this bike is pretty much fully assembled. So let's go ahead, fire this thing up and get a walkthrough of this bike. All right, guys, so up front we have our 180 millimeter Gemma hydraulic brakes, and they look like they should be good for this bike. And then we have our front forks here. I'm not sure of the brand name, but it's got a little Space Invaders thing on it, and they feel like they're decently soft. And then here we have our 26 by 4 inch fat tires, and they have this little reflective strip on the outside here. They are a knobby tread, and I'm not sure the brand on these, but we also have our front fender here, which we had to install. It is a plastic fender. And then we have our headlight here, which looks decently bright. You can see the pattern right there. And then our front forks, and we do have a preload adjustment and a lockout adjustment. Then in the middle, we have our black frame here with our built-in battery down here. Then we have our second 8.7 amp hour battery here. We have our set of keys, both right here to get our batteries in and out and everything. And down here we have our pedals, and then in this box is going to be our controller and then the cadence sensor and everything. Then we have our 850-pound rear shock here, which shouldn't be too soft since it is 850 pounds. And just sitting on this bike initially, doesn't feel like this rear suspension is going to be the softest. And you can see this line runs through here to the frame. I'm assuming it hooks up to this controller box right here, but this is for that second battery that you have. Then we have our seat here, which is actually very firm just from sitting on it initially. Then we have our rear rack here, which is pretty small actually. It's not as big as like the full length ones that I see a lot on other bikes. We do have our 180 millimeter rear hydraulic brakes back here. Again, the same ones, the Gamma branded ones. Doesn't look like there's any place for foot pegs on here, so I don't think that rear rack is going to be a seat. We have the same knobby tires on the back here with that same reflective strip. Then these are the specs on our hub motor here, 48 volts, 750 watts. We have our built-in rear tail light here, which headlights on, so it does come on with the headlight. No turn signals or anything on this. And the rear lights are brake lights when you squeeze the brakes. Here we have our standard 7-speed Shimano shifter, which we see all the time on bikes like this. And also our Shimano derailleur down here. And obviously our seat is adjustable here, but sitting down on the Cheetah and checking out the cockpit, this is what you're gonna see. Over here on the left, we have some nice rubber grips. I don't know if I've ever seen this kind before, but they feel pretty good and they're not moving around, so I think they're bolted down. On the left side is our front brake, and then we have our controller for our screen, which you can see is really basic, but it's gonna get the job done, and we can go through our pedal assist numbers here. If you hold the up button, it turns on and off the headlight. And we have a bell here since we don't have any horn on this bike. And taking the screen protector off our screen, you can see we have a kind of purplish tinted screen right here. This is sort of a fairly basic screen. If you hit the M button, you can go through your trip, your timer. Then it takes us back to our odometer here. You can see how many watts we're pulling, then our pedal assist number. If our headlight's on, then our speedometer, and then we've got a power meter up at the top there. Really wide handlebars on this so you can fit plenty of accessories. Then we have a rear view mirror here that I installed. They sent these separately, so I think you do have to buy them separate, but it is nice to have these on here. And I set them down here lower. I don't know if this is the best for visibility, but I like how it looks better. And over here, again, you have a lot of empty space for any accessories like a phone holder or something. And then over here, we have our Shimano shifter. 7 speeds again, pretty standard. We've seen this on a lot of bikes before. And we have a half twist throttle here on the handlebar. And then that same grip right here feels pretty good. Overall, good cockpit, and I like the fact that the handlebars are wide and it gives you plenty of space to customize it however you want. And there is a little USB port underneath the screen in case you need to charge your phone while you're riding. This is how I look standing next to the Cheetah. I am 5'9", about 150 pounds here. And I have a really comfortable position here, just kind of flat footing this bike. Obviously you can adjust the seat up and down, so if you're a bigger rider, this should be a good bike for you. I actually have a pretty hunched forward riding position on this. The seat feels really far back from the handlebars here. I actually did move the seat up a little bit higher just now, but this is kind of my pedal stroke on this bike, just leaning here on the kickstand. You can put a little bit more power into pedaling on this bike since you are like more hunched over here. I don't know if this will be the best long distance cruiser, but you know, I think this riding position is good if you want to pedal. Overall, the Haoqi Cheetah seems like a pretty cool bike. I really like the styling on this thing. The black paint looks really nice, and the branding is nice and subtle. And the fact that it has that frame integrated battery, and they give you that extra little 8.7 amp hour battery will give you some nice extra range. And again, the retail on this bike is about 1,600 bucks. So just a little bit of an update. They are doing a sale since I recorded that video. The one that I have spec'd out in this video that I'm showing you guys is $1,300 right now, and you get the extra battery and everything. UL certified, all that good stuff. And you can get it in black and green still. And then they have the single battery one for just under $1,000, which is an even better value for this bike. I think that this is a really good value at this price. But like I said, I recorded the video earlier, so all the pricing stuff might be a little outdated. But as of November 2024, they're doing this sale. I don't know how much longer it's gonna be because I think it is a Black Friday sale, but at $12.99 like this, I think that's a really good value for this bike. And any other discounts or anything that I can give you guys are gonna be in that pinned comment and in the description. But I think 1,600 bucks for a dual battery bike like this, full suspension, kind of off-road mountain bike like this, I think that's a pretty reasonable price. And if you can get a discount on it, even better. I'm glad that they do give you a front and rear fender included and also that rear rack. Because for this price, you know, I think that's just something that should be a given on this. The hydraulic brakes are also a really nice touch, but really the only way to see how this thing is to get it out on a ride. So let's go out and get the Cheetah on the road and get this thing tested out. All right guys, so we are testing out the Cheetah, the Haoqi Cheetah. And this bike has 18 miles on the odometer already, and that's because I've had nothing but issues with the video on this. The first time the video didn't work, the second time the audio wasn't recording, so this is like my third go at making this video. So I've put some miles on this bike already, and I'm gonna make a full review video, but I just wanted to let you guys know that's what was going on. But overall, this has been a really good bike so far. I actually like it quite a bit. I don't know if this bike is for me though necessarily. We'll talk more about that when we get on the ride, but let's hop on the bike and go take it out and check it out. I gotta say that I do like this bike quite a bit. It's got good specs on it. The brakes are really good on it. They included these rear view mirrors for me down here, as you can see. The front suspension is really soft and comfortable. The rear suspension is not the best. I don't know if I'm just not heavy enough for this, but this is a really heavy spring in the back. Like, it really takes a lot to compress it. And we're just taking this thing off-road a little bit here. On the back, this really does feel like a hardtail bike pretty much. Even though it is a 26 fat tire on the rear with that rear suspension, it feels like a hardtail bike on the back. And we are going over this rocky, muddy terrain right now, no problem. Power is okay on this bike. It's not the best. It is that 750 watt motor in the back. And on the screen here, it's really weird because I never really see it go over 500 watts. I never see it pulling more than 500 watts. We're on a full battery right now, but I've gotten this bike up to about 28. and I think that's where this thing maxes out. So it's not like a speed demon, it's not a super powerful bike. It's good enough for riding around in the street and everything. I forgot to bring my phone mount with me for the handlebars, but this speedometer is actually a few miles an hour slower than your actual speed. So right now we're probably going about 27 miles an hour. And we'll just take this thing up here. Now, pedaling this bike is actually pretty nice. Your pedal assist is gonna actually cut your power. There's no real speed limit in the pedal assist numbers. It's just cutting your power and the amount of assist that you have. And this is a cadence sensor on this bike. I'm in top gear on pedal assist 2, and this is a really good amount of assist right here. I think this is like the sweet spot. This and pedal assist 1 is really good. Like I said, I don't think there is a speed limiter for the pedal assist numbers. So, you know, if you're just cruising around in pedal assist 1, you can still go that top speed. It just depends on how fast you are pedaling. The throttle on this bike is actually really nice. It's this half twist throttle, and it's really smooth. It's nice and responsive. There's not much lag. Some e-bike throttles are really laggy and they don't respond very well, but this one feels really good. So what I meant when I said this bike probably wasn't made for me was I'm about 5'9", 150 pounds. And I think this bike was made for somebody who's a taller, bigger, heavier rider. It's got this really tough spring on the back made for somebody who's heavier. This frame is really big, and you're in this like mountain bike riding position where you're kind of hunched over. I don't have the seat up very high because, again, like this is a pretty big bike, so I wouldn't really be able to flat foot this thing if I had the seat much higher. So I think that this bike is a good option if you're a bigger person. If you're like 6 foot and above, you're probably gonna like this bike. And if you're a heavier person, it's gonna be good too. So this bike is certainly no speed demon. It's good enough, and you know, you can get up to that 27, 28 mile an hour top speed. This bike is limited to 20 out of the box, and it is this weird procedure to actually be able to unlimit the top speed and be able to get above 20 on throttle only. And you have to like hold down the brake 5 times when you first start the bike. It's just this strange procedure to be able to get rid of that top speed. Overall, this bike does get going. We're on a completely full battery right now, and the speedometer, like I said, is a few miles an hour off. So we're probably going about 26, 27. We'll probably get up to about 28, maybe 29 miles an hour on here. But overall, the bike feels really stable. The motor's quiet and everything. The tires are pretty loud because they're knobby tires. The front suspension feels good. These brakes feel really good. They're not the best that I've ever tested, but they are really good for a 26-inch fat tire bike like this. This isn't the heaviest bike in the world either, and when I stopped right there, that rear wheel locked out, but it is kind of cold out today, so that might have been why. Gemma is a good brand of brakes, so I wouldn't really worry about the brakes on this bike. I think they're really good, especially for the price. So my first impressions on this bike were, you know, it's a good bike and everything. The seat's pretty comfortable. I don't think it's the most comfortable. This really is a more mountain bike, you know, hunched over riding position. So I think that if you're looking for that, if you're looking for a bike that you're gonna pedal, this is gonna be a good option for you. But it's just a really big frame. So if you're somebody who's under, you know, 5'9", 5'10", I don't think that I can recommend this bike to you because it's just big. And I've had someone who's 5 foot on this bike too, and it's tough for them to ride. So if you're a bigger, heavier rider, I think you're gonna like this. And as far as off-road ability, you saw back there, we were going off-road on that, you know, muddy, rocky terrain back there, and it handled it just fine. You're not gonna be blasting up a hill on this thing, but you're going to be able to get going, especially if you're helping it out and you're pedaling. It's got plenty of power to be used off-road, and the 26-inch fat tires, the knobby fat tires, are really good for that. The one thing that really disappoints me on bikes that are over $1,000 like this one is the lack of a horn. You have this bike bell on here, but really if you're riding on the street, you want something that's going to get you a little bit more attention. If you're on a bike path, that's fine, but a horn is just going to be a better option if you're trying to be on a road and be a little bit safer. Another thing is the screen is pretty basic. There is no voltage or anything on here. There's a trip, there's a timer, there's obviously a odometer, there's an error code section here, and then it does tell you how many watts you're pulling, but this thing is a 750 watt motor, and it's supposed to peak over 750 watts, but I really never see it go over 500, so that's interesting too. And the display is nice, it's easy to read, you can see it in the daylight and everything. I'm not sure how well you can see it on the GoPro because it might be angled weird, but I can see it perfectly fine. You know, for a bike that's $1,400, I think that this is passable, especially since it's got such good brakes, and everything does feel high quality on this bike. Everything feels really good and well built, it's solid.
but it would be nice to see a little bit better display or a color display or something on there. This thing is definitely right at home on bike trails and stuff like this. I think that's what this is mainly designed for. Of course, you can take it off-road, and that hunched over riding position is good for pedaling and being able to get that power down to the pedals. And since this bike does have 2 batteries, you should be getting a good amount of range on this. I got about 17 or 18 miles on a single charge. I think the battery was just under full. It wasn't completely full, but that's still pretty good range for a big bike like this. And that was only on that the main battery. I didn't have the secondary battery on there. I actually had an issue with that battery where it wasn't charging, so I had to send that back to them, but hopefully they can get me another one out and we can see how much range you get with both batteries. My first impressions on this bike were it's a pretty good bike overall. The seat could be a little bit more comfortable, but the frame is really big, so if you're a bigger rider, you're gonna really like this bike. And I would say that this could definitely be in your list if you're shopping for a bike for a bigger person right now. I really like the throttle and the grips on this. I like the fact that it has good, Gamma branded brakes. They feel awesome on this bike. I also love the fact that this comes with that little rear rack on the back. It's not like a full-sized one, but you still can throw a backpack on there and you can strap it down, and it just helps out to have that extra storage, especially if you're going to be using this thing for trips around town and stuff like that, and running errands and whatnot. If you can snag this thing up for that sale price that they have going right now, around $1,000, I think that this is a really good bike for that amount of money. I think it's a good value. You get really good brakes for $1,000, and you get a pretty powerful motor. You get a lot of battery range, and overall, I just think that you get a good, solid e-bike. Haoqi as a company is a pretty big brand in the e-bike space. They're pretty well known. I'm gonna have a little bit more of an in-depth video coming out on this bike soon, but so far, my first experience with this bike is really good. I really like this bike. I just wish that rear suspension was a little bit softer, and I think that this thing would be a really, really good bike. If you switch this out for an air shock in the rear here, I think you're gonna be really happy with how this bike rides. The power is nice, the momentum gets going. It actually feels pretty agile for a 26-inch mountain bike style bike. Overall, I can definitely recommend this bike, especially if you're in the market for a bigger mountain bike and you're a bigger guy or girl and you want something that you can actually pedal on and put that power down. I think that this is a great option for that. I'm gonna have a full review video coming out on this bike here in the next few weeks, and I will also link to that in the description. But with that being said, guys, I wanna thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.